There's no right or wrong in these answers, by the way. The only right and wrong answer is if your spouse sees your answer, then it better be the right answer. It's supposed to be done anonymously. If I see a bunch of fives, everyone gives a 5, I know there's a little bit of, all right, whatever.
Coercion.
Yeah. Coercion. Okay, do we have those? I need them. Over there doesn't help me at all. I'm going to read all of them before we even start. Is that amazing? Okay, all right, let me begin and we'll, hopefully I'll introduce at a certain point. The Gemara gives us a description of a marriage. And as a matter of fact, it's one of the brachas that we give to the chassan and kala, Sameach to Samach Re'im Ahuvim. Be happy, be joyful. Re'im means friends, Ahuvim, beloved. Rashi explains what this means. This is a chassan and kala. Re'im Ahuvim means best friends who love each other. Sameach to Samach, you too, who are best friends who love each other. Sameach to Samach, you should be joyful, you should be happy. And I believe with those words, Chazal define the relationship. Best friends who love each other. But best friends who love each other has 2 parts to it. Best friends and love each other. I've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of couples. And on a regular basis, I will ask a couple, are you guys friends? We used to be, but are you now? Well, and in the heavy traffic of life, I think a lot of times you see that people no longer are friends. And if you're not best friends who love each other, it's very difficult to be happily married. So I'd like to deal with this issue tonight. How to remain best friends who love each other in the heavy traffic of life. But to do this, let me begin with an observation. I have some business advice to share with you. If you have a business, hire talent. If you need help in marketing, if you need help in sales, maybe accounting, hire talent, pay for it, bring them in. Or whatever you do, don't bring in a partner. Why? Because if you don't know by now, you'll soon find out that almost every partnership ends. It might be 5 years, it might be 10 years, for sure by 20, and almost always it ends badly. In fact, the only thing worse than bringing in a partner is bringing a family member who's a partner, because then when it ends, it's very difficult and very ugly. But here's the observation. Take 2 people of the same gender and ask them to share their 9 to 5, and it's rare that it's going to last 5 years or 10 years with peace, because eventually I want to take the business this way, you want to take it this way, I feel domestic, you feel international, and invariably there's no longer meeting of the minds, divergent viewpoints, and in a short time, almost every business partnership ends up splitting. So here's the point. Husband and wife are not asked to share their 9 to 5. They're asked to share their entire life. That means everything that they do together, from the time they get up in the morning till the time they get up at night, how they raise the kids, what type of schooling, what type of house. If she's late, he's late. If he's messy, she's embarrassed. And when you ask 2 people to meld their lives and live together in peace and harmony, I think you'll see that it should not really work. As a matter of fact, I contend that not a single marriage should work. Why? Because you deal with people who have different opinions, different ways of doing things, different approaches, different... No, it's okay. I was terrible in school. I didn't learn a word in school because I heard the buzzing and the noise and it's terrible. Okay, sorry. I'm usually better at ignoring noise, but not. Anyway, I contend that not a single marriage should work. Why? Because each of us have different quirks and idiosyncrasies, different ways of doing things, different approaches, and to ask a man and a woman to come together and live in peace and harmony should never happen. But if you don't believe me that it's difficult to be successfully married, I'll share with you one difference. I love when couples bring me differences. We're so different, he's this and I'm that, he's that, I'm outgoing, he's introverted, he's extroverted. I say to them one thing. Any difference that you'll bring me in the Briggs-Young inventory of personality, right? Many different personality types. Any difference that you'll show me between you and your spouse pales in comparison, is nothing compared to the one biggest difference. You are of opposite genders. but opposite genders mean opposite genders. I'll give you an example. Little children, there's an interesting study that showed Daniel Goleman did an interesting study of public school children. At 3 years of age, they asked the boys the following question: name your best friend. 50% of the boys named the girl as his best friend. They asked the girls, and again, about 50% of the girls named the boy as his best friend. At 5 years of age, they asked the same group of children to name their best friend. Only 20% of the boys named the girl as his best friend. Only 20% of the girls named a boy as her best friend. They asked the same children when they were 7 years old to name their best friend. Not a single boy mentioned the girl as his best friend. Not a single girl mentioned a boy as her best friend. Why? Because when children are little, they're in the juvenile stage, they play together nicely. And when they hit 5, they hit 7, the boys are off playing rough and tumble games, the girls are playing doll, playing house, and their worlds go in very, very different ways. And by the time they're 8 and 9, they're so different, they never play together because they have no interests. They talk about different things, and different things excite them, different things they enjoy doing. But here's the observation. When the boys and girls turn 12, 13, they don't become more similar. When they turn 17, 18, they become even more different. By the time a young man and a young woman meet, they are so different and in such different worlds that not a single marriage should work. Now, obviously, Hashem wants marriages to work. And so Hashem created a number of tools that bond. The first tool that bond is something that I call infatuation. It's when you see the chassan, he's newly engaged, or you see the kallah and he gets that glassy-eyed look. Ooh, she's perfect. Oh, he's perfect. You ever notice that? They get that, they can't quite focus. They're sort of like it's almost like dementia, almost like obsession. It's like, they talk for hours on end and you can't break their... Okay. By the way, folks, you ever notice if you ask the chassan, you'll hear the word, she's amazing. And he goes on and on. He asks the kallah, he's amazing on it. My wife is one of the sharpest people I know. I heard her on the phone when we were newly engaged. This was now 36 years ago. Anyway, newly engaged, and I heard her say these words. I know it can't be. I know no one's perfect, but I'm telling you, he's perfect. Now, I heard that. I was not going to be the one to tell her, but I knew that she was in for a rude awakening. Why is it that the chassan thinks she's perfect, and she thinks he's perfect? The answer is, there's a certain chemical that goes off in the brain, the serotonin, dopamine, the adrenaline, the various neurochemicals get affected, and there's a sense of, woo, the couple are high. Scientists have studied the neurotransmitters, and they say a couple in that state of infatuation, it has the same effect on the neurotransmitters as does cocaine use. The couple are high, he's perfect, the violins are playing, the bees are swarming, and everything is beautiful, and we're going to be happy forever, ever, ever after. Okay, and then about 6 months after the wedding, it's either he or she, sometimes both wake up and say the words, oh my goodness, I made the biggest mistake in my life, I married the wrong one. And I'd like to share with you, they're making a mistake, but not the one they think they make. It's not that they married the wrong one, it's that the infatuation wore off. Infatuation is this temporary state, it's this illusionary state, she's perfect, he's perfect, and in that state you think it'll last forever, but it doesn't. And you see, that's when the couple has got to get to work. Because the bond of love is something that requires a lot of work. You see, infatuation is instant. She looked in my eyes and I was gone. Love is not instant at all. Infatuation makes you not even see your spouse's flaws. Love allows you to see very clearly their flaws, but love them anyway. But the biggest difference is that infatuation just happens, love doesn't happen. Love takes a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of effort. And this is the very first of the 10 really dumb mistakes that very smart couples make. They mistake infatuation for love. Infatuation is a temporary state. It's kind of like the sulfur on a kitchen match. You strike it and it flares up, but then either the wood catches or it never did its job. Infatuation allows a couple to begin and allows them to start the process, to take that very difficult step of taking two people who are very different and bringing them together, but then they have to work on the love in the marriage, and if they don't, they're going to find themselves in very difficult straits. My friends, the glue of a marriage is love. That's what keeps it together, and the heavy traffic of life, if there isn't a powerful bond of love in your marriage, forget about it. It is not a criteria for selection. You don't choose this person because I love them. As a matter of fact, I know many, many couples who were not in love when they got married, and they have beautiful, beautiful marriages after. And I know many couples who are so infatuated, wow, and they get married and things are kind of rocky. You see, one of the mistakes that Hollywood shares with us is they assume that infatuation becomes love. It just grows up and concretizes into love. It's false. Infatuation is a temporary state. It happens and then it's gone. And then the couple either work on the bond of love, they work on the connection, or if they don't, they find themselves in very difficult straits. Okay, now, gentlemen, I'm going to become very unpopular here with you. I'll become very popular with the ladies right now. Gentlemen, this one's yours. It is a husband's responsibility to romance his wife. The husband is responsible to plan the dates. The husband is responsible for the love notes, the gestures, all those kind little things. You should be a couple in love, but that requires a lot of work. And gentlemen, the romantic part of it is your responsibility. It is your job. Why is it your job? Because that's what your wife needs. And if you don't understand that your wife needs it, the Stipler writes in the Geras. The Stipler going writes in the Geras, he says, at the essence, a woman needs to be loved. If she doesn't think that her husband loves her, he says the words, she'll feel empty, she'll feel crushed. It's close to pikuach nefesh, it's close to life-threatening to her. That's the nature of a woman. If a woman feels loved, if she feels cherished, she'll be happy. And if not, she'll be miserable. Gentlemen, would you like to be happy? Yes? Yes? Yeah? No, say no. No means no. Yes means yes. No means no. Would you like to be happy? Yes. A happy wife is a happy life. If you romance your wife, it's all the flowers, the gifts, the gestures, the going out. If you provide all of that attention and she knows that one yesod that she's cherished, she will be happy and thereby you will be happy. Okay, now here's a little piece of information. Do you know that most women can be fully secure, fully developed emotionally? There's one area that they're insecure about. Every woman I know is insecure about her husband's love. You know that little girl with the daisy? He loves me not, he loves me. So most women for sure, in the beginning stages of the marriage are insecure about the husband's love. Beginning stages of marriage, the first 30 or 35 years. And I cannot tell you how many times a woman sincerely says, he doesn't love me, he doesn't care. The guy would take a bullet for her, and he says it, and he will. He doesn't love me, he doesn't care. Why? Why does she feel that way? Because if you don't show her in gestures and words and actions that she understands, she's not going to get it. So gentlemen, this one's yours. It is your job to romance your wife. It's your responsibility. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, honest answer over here. In the past month, how many of you have gone out as a couple 3 times or more? But one second, let me explain what couple going out means. Not to a mitzvah or a wedding or your in-laws, going out to spend time together, to bond, just to be together. How many times in the past month? Who raise your hand, please, if you've gone out 3 times or more in the past month? Okay, raise your hand, please, if you've gone out twice or more in the past month. Okay. Raise your hand, please, if you went out 1 time in the past month. I ain't gonna ask who never went out. Okay. Gentlemen, with all due respect, you're not being smart. What can I tell you? But if she wanted to go out, I told her, just choose the restaurant, choose the place, and I'll meet her there. You blew it. If she doesn't think you care, if she doesn't think you want to spend time with her, she's not going to get the message you want to give her. The message you want to give her is 1, I cherish you, I love you, you're the most important thing in the world to me. Could you imagine, ladies, wow, could you imagine if your husband said those words to you? Wow, and meant it, and and convinced you that he really means it? The sad part is he does mean it. And this is the saddest part. I'm telling you, I've seen this all the time. Guys are devoted to their wives, they're dedicated to their wives. In fact, ask most men to name their best friend. 80% of men name their wife. Not a single woman ever mentions a husband as her best friend. No, Sally, that's right. 80% of men, when asked that question to name your best friend, name their wife. So why does a woman feel he doesn't love me, he doesn't care? Because if you don't learn to communicate it in the language that she understands, it's going to be very rough. So this is, gentlemen, this one's on you. I'm going to put some on the woman's roles and responsibility also, but gentlemen, this one's yours. It's your responsibility to romance your wife. But here's the problem. There are 3 pillars to a successful marriage. There's commitment, there's love, and there's learning to live together. Commitment comes from the understanding that Hashem doesn't make mistakes. Hashem matched you two up because you are perfect for each other. It may not be the one you would have created, may not be the one you would have fashioned or shaped, but your creator who's wiser than you and I and every other human put together says you two are perfect for each other. The commitment to work on the marriage, the commitment to stick it out and really do the difficult work comes from a clear understanding that Hashem doesn't make mistakes, Hashem put you together. The love in the marriage, that's what keeps you on a day-to-day basis. That's all the romantic pieces, and there's a lot of pieces, by the way. It's not just romance, there's friendship, there's appreciation, there's a lot of pieces. Some will touch on tonight, a lot more in the book. But you see, here's the problem. There are 3 pillars to a successful marriage: commitment, love, and the third pillar. And I'd like to share with you, many couples are very, very committed to their marriage, committed to their children, and they really love each other, but they can't quite seem to live together. And this evening, what I'd like to deal with a little bit is that third pillar, learning to live together. So to do this part, let me begin with a little vignette, a little story. Here it goes, something like this. It's 6:30 at night, a fella comes home, plops himself down on the couch, and he pulls out the newspaper. He's exhausted after a long day at work, sits and reads the paper. Anyway, his wife is in the kitchen. He says, "Hi, dear." She doesn't say much, but one kid pulls down some books, another kid knocks over the coffee table, another kid runs. His wife is sitting in the kitchen steaming. I don't believe the guy. He's going to sit there on the couch. The kids are wrecking the pot. I'm cooking supper, and he's going to sit there on the couch. Anyway, the steam starts rising more and more, and it's not from the pot, it's from her ears. And finally, she stands up and points a thing and says, "All right, mister, up off that couch. You're either cooking dinner or taking care of the kids. You are not sitting there any longer." So he dutifully gets up, helps with the kids. They bathe them, give them supper, put them to bed. Ladies, was she correct? Was she right? Gentlemen, was she correct? So let me share with you. She was 100% correct, obviously. If your wife is slaving away, the kids are wrecking up, get up off the couch and take care of it. But nevertheless, what she did was very, very damaging to her marriage. Why? Because what happens is after they put the kids to sleep, and it's about 9 o'clock now and it's quiet, so he's sitting on the couch and she sits down right next to him. And for some strange reason, he kind of slides away. So she moves a little closer, and he moves further. And she moves closer, and he moves further. And for the life, what's wrong with the guy? Why is he so cold? Why is he so distant? What she doesn't understand is that for the past 2 hours, like a tape recorder in his brain has been playing the words, "All right, mister, up off the couch. You're either cooking dinner or taking care of the kids. You're not going to sit there anymore. All right, mister," while they're bathing the kids, while they're feeding the kids, while they're putting to bed. "All right, mister, up off the couch. All right, mister, up off the couch. All right, mister, up off the couch." And he reaches the cold, clear understanding, "Oh my goodness, I married a drill sergeant." And ladies and gentlemen as well, if you don't learn how to communicate your needs properly, it's going to be very rough. Communication doesn't mean just communicate. "I told you 6 times already, madam." It's not kind of communication. Communication means allowing your spouse to share your viewpoint, allowing them into your emotional world, allow them to experience things as you do. And communication is not simply just blurting things out. So let me share with you the 4 rules of friendship. The first rule of friendship goes like this. Okay, who's boss in your marriage? Who's in charge? I'm sorry? Husband? Who's in charge? Who's got veto power? Come on. Let's be honest. Who's the boss? Who's in charge? Who's in charge of what? I'm sorry? What? You know, the one who makes the decisions, the one who has the final say, the one who's... Okay. Thank you very much. There is no one in charge. You're best friends who love each other. You negotiate, you debate. Now, it could be you relegate one area to the husband or to the spouse. Let's say she's better finances and he's better, whatever it may be. That's okay. But that's a joint decision that we've given that over to you. But you see, you're equal partners with different roles, but equal partners. There's no carte blanche, no veto power, no I'm the boss, it's my way or the highway because I said so. That works in a totalitarian dictatorship, but it doesn't work in a love affair.
What if it's like that?
What? You what?
What if you can agree who's in charge?
Oh, you fight it out, slug it out, punch each other, just knock each other down. Just let the victor, the stronger one win. That's what I suggest. By the way, can I make a suggestion? Don't fight with your wife. Don't fight with your wife. Now, why don't you fight? Because if you win, if you lose, you lose. If you win, you lose, right? It's your best friend and lover you just beat up. But I have a better point to tell you. Don't fight with your wife because I guarantee you're going to lose. You're fighting with an 8th degree black belt. Everything you've done wrong since my separation, she's going to remember and tell you, and you did this, and you did, I don't even remember it being there. But children, how is it possible? Why is it that women have such phenomenal memories? They can't forget a detail. By the way, they've done studies. Women have no better recall in mathematics, in economics, in social studies. Why is it, though, that every detail of you, anything you did wrong since you were born, she remembers? Right? Am I right? Why is that? She has a lot of free time. I see who's the boss. And you're the Okay, I'll explain to you why. I have a very simple observation. It doesn't happen to any of us, but imagine one of your friends got into a fight. They got into a fight. Ask the husband, you went to work that day, how many times during the day did you think about the fight? What fight? Okay, ask the wife, how many times did you think about the fight? What do you think? I couldn't stop thinking about when I did the laundry, but the kids, like, over and over his word. Do you understand why she can't forget the details? Because they play in her brain again and again, because a woman is much more attached emotionally. She feels it much more, and it will play in her brain again, 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 and again. She's going to, don't fight with your wife. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Okay, but anyway, if you'd like to know who's the boss in your marriage, the answer is there are no bosses. You're best friends who love each other. And the first rule of friendship is friends don't boss friends around. Even if he bounced the check, even if he's going to make us bankrupt, even if we're late again, even whatever your ifs are, you negotiate, you debate, you discuss, but you don't boss around, because friends don't boss friends around. That's not the way it works. So that's the first rule of friendship. Friends don't boss around. Now, I know one here does that, right? No one would ever, I know, no one would ever. I guarantee this device, the worst device ever created in the planet. Steve Jobs, you know, the apple on the back with the bite, you know, the original sin, he knew very well what he was doing. This device is horrible. However, there is one redeeming feature on this device. It's called the recorder. As a little scientific experiment, one day during supper, just record your conversation with your spouse and play it afterwards. But don't listen to what your spouse said. Listen to yourself, and I guarantee you're far more polite and far more nice and accepting of strangers than you are of your own spouse. This is a John Gottman study. John Gottman studied couples in depth, and he would bring in a couple into his lab, and he measured everything. He measured their pulse, their respiration, he videotaped it. He would ask a husband to speak to a stranger, and then he would ask him to speak to his wife. Then he asked the husband to step out, and he had the woman speak to her husband, and then again to a stranger. Here's what he found. Invariably, with a couple of newly married or married for decades, we are far more polite with utter strangers than we are with our spouse, but even worse. If we disagree, we're far more agreeable and far more ready to accept a stranger's opinion than we are our own spouse. And it's a very odd thing. If you don't very carefully work on this, and very carefully and very, very attuned to this, I guarantee you're going to start finding yourself saying things you would never say to a friend. You'll excuse me for the Batsman's joke. A couple having a fight. The phone rings. Oh, hi. Oh, yeah. Oh, great. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. You ever notice? We're so polite, so friendly, so civil to other people, but in our own most important relationship, we're not. First rule of friendship is friends don't boss friends around. Okay, good. Let's move on to the second rule. Here we go. It's Yom Kippur. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A woman comes into her apartment and she sees her husband on the couch. He's not in shul, on the couch with a ham sandwich in this hand, a cigar in this hand. He takes a puff on the cigar, takes a bite of the ham sandwich, and she can't bite a woman. It's Yom Kippur. What do you do? Put that down right now. Put that down. What are you doing? Now, is she right? It's Yom Kippur. Come on. You're eating a ham sandwich and smoking a cigar in Yom Kippur. I don't got to tell you that's not quite right? But here's the problem. She violated one of the cardinal rules of friendship in marriage. You see, that is an appropriate tone for a Rebbe, a mentor, a rabbi, a teacher, a police lady to take with your spouse. But that's not the way you treat your spouse. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to say this very clearly now, and I'll say it 3 times because you're not going to believe me. I'm going to say it. Ready? You are not responsible for the spiritual level of your spouse. Let me say it again. You are not responsible for the spiritual level of your spouse. You are not responsible for the spiritual level of your spouse. Why did I say 3 times? Because no one believes me. But if I don't make him a minion, he's going to sleep late. If she's her skirt, you see her skirt, I'm embarrassed. Okay, let me make it very clear. There's an awful lot that you have to work on. Many, many areas. Work on it. Do it. Do it. But the one area that you're not supposed to work on is your spouse. Because you're best friends who love each other. Your relationship, by the way, when I got married, my wife said to me, why don't we learn? I said, great. So we took out a Sil Sharm, and the first night it went very well. And the second night, she wasn't as interested. And by the third night, she didn't want to learn. I said, why not? She said, well, feels like you're a teacher. Like, since that time, we've never learned together. My wife goes to Shurim all the time. I will not, because she's right. I'm not her mentor. I'm not her rabbi. I'm not her teacher. That's not the relationship. Best friends who love each other. You're not responsible for the spiritual level of your spouse. And by the way, if you're afraid, but my spouse is going to go to Gehenna, you're right. You got a lot of trouble there because you go together. Oh, I better make sure he comes to davening. I better make sure she works. Well, don't do it that way. Okay, anyway, rule number 1 is friends are nice, friends are polite, friends don't boss friends around. Rule number 2 is you're not responsible for the spiritual level of your spouse. You're not their Rebbe, their mentor, their teacher, their police lady. Okay, now we get, yes?
What if it's something that you have to do together, like in terms of responsibility? How does that affect?
Give me an example.
Like we need now or anything like that. How does...
That's a big problem. That's a very real problem. And you need a third party outside of your marriage to help you navigate that one. I highly recommend that you have somebody that you meet with, discuss, because you're right, that directly impacts both parties. That's not where, I say keep your eyes on your side, but there it directly impacts me. So you're right, you need a third party and you discuss it and hopefully come to a meeting of the minds. Yeah?
I can accept the fact that here the couples are on different levels and we're not their mentor, their rabbi, we're not their representatives. However, they're raising children and the family together, and the children are getting would get the wrong message.
Yes,
So
correct.
something like that.
Correct. Okay, so let's deal with that question. If you have a shalom bias or your children, what do you do? Well, let's say your wife is reckless with the discipline, or my husband is way too strict, he's ruining the kids. Now, you know if you say anything, it's going to ruin the shalom bias. On the other hand, you have a responsibility to your children. What comes first, the shalom bias or your children? What comes first? Shalom bias, children. Okay, I'll let you in a secret. The question is in error. Why? Because the single most important investment you'll make in your children being wholesome, happy people is your marriage. You see, especially when your kids are little, you guys are 10 feet tall. If mommy and daddy start to quibble and squirrel and the words start flying, their whole world starts to become unglued. The single most important investment you can make in your children being wholesome, happy children is having a good marriage. Because if they're brought up in a happy home, they'll be developed, they'll do fine. Maybe a little this way, a little that way, but they'll be wholesome, intact children. If the very core of their home starts to tremble, well, guess what? It's going to be very rocky. There's never a competition between shalom bias and chinuch, because I guarantee anything that you're going to win for your children's success at the expense of your marriage is going to damage them far more. You are 100 times better off giving in, and having a good marriage than keeping your way. But I have a big question to ask you. How do you know you're right? How do you know you're right? My wife is way too strict with the kids. My husband is way too lenient. He's ruining the kids. She's ruining the kids. How do you know you're right? Each one is certain. Okay, so let me share with you something interesting. Many years ago, my oldest daughter was, I think, in 4th grade or 5th grade. There was some trouble that she was having in school, so the school recommended we go to see Dr. Rita Underberg. Dr. Rutenburg had been the head of psychology at University of Rochester. I was the Rabbi in Rochester then. And she had recently retired, and she was then working with parents, teaching them how to parent their kids. And she was a world expert. She had studied under Chaim Ganat. Anyway, we went there and my mouth dropped. The woman was brilliant. I took copious notes, page after page. After a few weeks, we knew exactly what to do with our child. I said to my wife, we'll continue. We went for 2 years. Week after week, I took incredible notes because I begged her to write a book. She wouldn't. I said, I'll write it with you. Anyway, unfortunately, she died before it was ever written. The woman was brilliant beyond brilliant. One of the observations that I began understanding when working closely with her is the following. Do you know why you parent the way you parent? Why is it that you're so sure that this is the right way? I guarantee you parent that way because that's your temperament, that's your personality. If you're very, very disciplined, then obviously that's what's needed to succeed, and that's how you're going to bring up your children. If you're real laid back and chilled and kind of spontaneous, then that's the way to bring up your children. Invariably, the way we parent our children is our temperament, our nature. So the next time you're 100% right, that my way is the right way, and he's ruining the kids, she's destroying the kids, take a step back and say to yourself, how do I know? I've seen many, many children brought up beautifully with lacks, without discipline, like sins like Veldechayas, and they turn out to be great, great kids. And I see many, many kids who are brought up very strict and the opposite. And I'd like to share with you, different people have different temperaments, different nature, and the hardest child to parent is the one who's not like you. Remember, you and your spouse are going to be very different. Each of your kids is going to be more like one of you and the other. So if you have 3 kids in a row, each one like me, it's easy, and then the 4th one is not like me, it's like she is like my spouse. That is the hardest child, because I don't get her. I don't know, because we parent based on our temperament. So the next time you get into one of those situations with your spouse, where you know your spouse is destroying the children, take a step back and say to yourself, how do I know? But even if you're right, even if everyone would agree with you, I guarantee the damage that you're going to bring to your marriage will be far more destructive to your children than any discipline system or any approach or anything. Bring your kids up to be happy, healthy, and then you work on it. Otherwise not. Okay, but that's off topic. Again, we're doing the rules of friendship. Rule number 1 of friendship is what? No bosses. No one's the boss in marriage. Rule number 2 of friendship is? You're not your teacher, mentor. You're not responsible for the spiritual level of your spouse. Rule number 3. Are you ready? Gentlemen, this one's a big one. Here we go. Ladies, it's a big one as well here. Okay, if someone gets into a fight with your spouse, what is your role? It is you and your spouse against that person. What if it's a best friend? If it's a best friend who gets into a verbal argument with your spouse, it's you and your spouse against the best friend. Well, what if it's a cousin? It's you and your spouse against the cousin. Well, what if it's my mother, my father, my uncle, my brother? It's you and your spouse against your brother, your father, your mother, your uncle. What about if it's the whole world? So unless it's real abuse or very dangerous, it's you and your spouse against the world. Now, here we go. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, here we go. You sure you're ready? I'm sure you're not ready for this one. Okay. Your mother doesn't like your wife. And she makes it very clear that she doesn't approve, accept, or really feel your wife is any good. And she makes it very clear. Gentlemen, what is your job? He's my mother. Keep it up. Hey, how can I say anything? Please, mir. I'll read a pasuk. Al kein Yozov ish es aviv es imo. When you get married, a man leaves his mother and his father. He leaves his birth home. V'davat be'ishton clings to his wife. Your primary responsibility is your spouse. It's your spouse first. Your spouse before your friends. Your spouse before your cousins. Your spouse before your uncle. Your spouse before your parents. And that means even if your mother really, really doesn't like your spouse, it's you and your spouse against your mother. How can I speak against my mother? If you're not ready to speak against your mother, you're not ready to get married. Woo! Rabbi Shafier, you're out of your mind. How did you say those words? I say those words to you guys because you see, Ashkenazi Jews have no respect. Keep it up, amen. Get out of here, ma, yo, bug off. Svardim, especially Bukharim, have real respect and real kibbud avim, and they many times I've had problems where the woman says to me, my mother-in-law buds in, and she's always in the apartment, she's always there, and she never leaves me alone, my husband won't stand up for me. So gentlemen, I'll make it very clear, it is your job to fight for your spouse. It is you and your spouse against the world, even if it's your mother, your father, your uncle, your brother, your cousin, your friend, it's you and your spouse. Do I mean that? Are people going to come over to me afterwards? Women, not guys. Women, you see, Rabbi Shafier said, you see? And the guy's going, I can't, this is my mother. Well, you can't, then you're not ready to get married. Okay, that's the third rule of friendship. Okay, ready for the fourth rule? Okay, she blew it again. She blew it again. You told her 27,000 times to tell you before she writes a check. And she wrote another check and she bounced it because she didn't tell you. He left his socks on the floor again for the 10,435th time. And I told him, and he did it again. What do you do? The fourth rule of friendship is friends are forgiving, even when their best friend makes a mistake, even when he's a jerk, even when she did something stupid, even when you told her and you told her and you told her, because friends are forgiving. The first rule of friendship is what? No one is the boss in the marriage. You're equal partners with different roles. Rule number 2, friendship is what? You're not responsible for your spouse's, right? Rule number 3 is what? Friends support friends. You support your spouse even against whatever. And the fourth rule of friendship is that friends are tolerant and forgiving. And really, folks, marriage is the simplest relationship in the world. You know why? All you have to do is act as you did when you were chassan and kala. All you have to do is do that and you'll have a perfect marriage. You ever notice chassan and kala, they don't fight, they don't quibble? What happens? He always has time for her. She's always interested in what he has to say. They talk and they bond. Why is that? No kids? That's only part of it. You're right. No, by the way, the single greatest competition for your marriage is your children. And what do you have to do? You have to set boundaries. You have to tell your children there are rules. Tuesday night is mommy and daddy's night out. And this is what I'm going to say because it's a starting group also over here. On your bedroom door is a thing called a lock. A lock. A lock. Children do not belong in parents' bedroom. Children. I don't say an infant, up until 3 months, 6 months, maybe. No, even then, I'm not so happy with it. But after that point, there's a lock on the bedroom door, and the lock gets locked. And if a child gets up in the middle of the night, okay, you go to the child's bed, and you calm it, but the child does not come into the parent's bedroom. The child does not come into the bed of the mother or the father. She's scared, she's nervous. Okay, so you go to her, and you calm her down, and you help her. But it's you go to her, because there have to be boundaries. And if you don't set very clear boundaries, guess what? Your marriage is going to be toast. Because children compete for romance. Children compete for attention. Kids are the biggest competitors for the success of your marriage. And you have to know that if you want to be a good parent, you have to keep your marriage intact. And you must set boundaries. And if you don't, you're wrecking your children. But I'm such a kind guy. How can I turn my child away? How can I be so cruel? Because you love your child. And you know that you're going to damage them if you don't keep your marriage solid. And the way you keep your marriage solid is with boundaries and laws and rules. And that's what you got to do. So anyway, let's come back to this point. Marriage is the simplest thing in the world. All you got to do is act like a chassan and kala, and life is beautiful. But why? Why? Because you did everything right back then. He had all the time in the world to talk to her. She really listened to him. My daughter, this is a phenomenal thing. I have a son-in-law who's brilliant, and he sang a Dvar Torah a couple of years back, and I'm paying attention, and at a certain point, he lost me. My mamish got lost. And I see my daughter is like this. And I'm lost. And he's going on and on, and I know he's talking, and he's going on, and I'm like, wow, it's amazing. I went over to, this didn't make sense. I mean, I learned in Kola for many, many years. I was a Rebbe already for 15 years. I wasn't following it, she was. So I said to her after, wow, it's amazing, you're following the whole thing. Wow. I wasn't following. And I said, well, what are you saying? Well, I want to give him the cover. I want him to think of me. I said, wow. Wow. Do you hear? Ladies, do you hear? I wanted to give him the cover that I'm listening, that I'm paying attention. She didn't have a clue. His father-in-law wasn't as respectful because I was already yawning, going, whatever. No, I tried to. But, okay, all you got to do is, and it's really very simple. Treat her like a queen, she'll treat you like a king. Treat her like a servant, she'll treat you like a slave. But ladies, there's a corollary. Treat him like a king, he'll treat you like a queen. Treat him like a servant, he'll treat you, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so all you got to do is pay attention to one single thing. You know why I gave these out? Why did I give these out? I give these out because I have Yetzer Hara. I know, invariably, if the rating is a 4 or less, if the rating is not a 5, if it's a 4 or less, I know I'm going to see 2 or 3 things that my spouse does wrong that's wrecking our marriage. Unless it's a very happy marriage, there are going to be 2 or 3 things that my spouse does wrong that's wrecking my marriage. I have been there hundreds of times when a couple comes in. You know what she does? You know what she does? You know? I said, okay, I get it. She's bad. I said, but do you contribute? Yeah, right. Okay, listen, I'm a little bit at fault, 40%, but she's the 40% means I don't really do, little things, but she's the, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me share with you. If you would like a happy marriage, work on your marriage. But work on your marriage doesn't mean work on your spouse. Work on your marriage doesn't mean change your spouse. Work on your marriage doesn't mean improve your spouse. Work on your marriage means improve yourself. Ask yourself this key critical question. What is it that I do that really bothers my spouse? Do you know how many times I've had couples in my office and I'll ask him or her, tell me, what is her complaint? What's his complaint? I don't know. I don't have a 5 years idea. Are we just fighting? I don't even, what do you mean you don't know? He said it to you and said it to you and said it to you 10,000. How could you not know? How could you not? The answer is because that's just words. The real problem is that he's not meeting my needs. The real problem is she's not meeting my needs. So ladies and gentlemen, as long as you see the marriage as your spouse's fault and your spouse has to change and your spouse better do things differently, good luck. Let's see how that works out for you. It won't work out. The minute you recognize that you can change the marriage, but what can you change? Your side of the equation. If you focus on you, you can make some real, but what should I focus on? If you don't know, I'll give you a little clue. Listen. It's the thing that your spouse says again and again. Now, not always a spouse is so clear. And I'll be obvious, you see men and women are different. And sometimes, like, men aren't able to express their anyone know what I'm talking about? And sometimes women do things that drive men mad. And they don't even know what it is. I'll give you an example. I had a certain family member who, whenever she would come in the house, I would leave. Why? She was so helpful. Lady, I know how to tie my shoes. I got this, okay? You ever know those women are so helpful? And so, listen, if I needed help, I'd ask for it. I got this. Do me a favor. Don't insult me by, ladies, anyone know what I'm talking about? Huh? Yeah. You want to hear a superstar story? One time in my life, I got it right. Oh, this was a winner. One time I got it right. My wife, we have a gym in the basement. Both of us, we work out very religiously, and I mean that, religiously, 3-4 times a week minimum. And anyway, my wife said to me one day, it's really hot in the room. Really hot in the room. She didn't say another word. The next day, I had an electrician put in 2 fans with a remote. She comes down to the gym and, wow. Okay, do you know what just happened? I felt like a champion, and she felt loathed. Now, I'm a decent guy. Had she said to me, will you please get some fans? I would have done it like a chore. I'm not an idiot. I would have done it because I'm a decent guy, but it would have been exactly that, a chore. She gave me a chance to be a champion. Wow. Ladies, if you would like your husband to shine, give him hints, let him know subtly, a diamond ring will be gets with you. Nice, that pearl necklace, No, but let him know subtly, and then, gentlemen, it's your job to listen carefully and be a champion. But ladies, do me a favor. Don't hound them, don't hock them, don't bog, don't give them the ring, the worst thing in the world. It's the worst thing in the world. You ever go shopping? Gentlemen, tell me it's not true. 25 things on the list. And you got 24. Where's the 25th? What's the sauce? Anyone know what it is? Worcestershire sauce? I went to Wesley Kosher to get Worcestershire. I didn't know what it was. So I asked one of the Italian fellows, what is this? Worcestershire. I don't know. Might have been Japanese. So if a guy comes home without the Worcestershire sauce or the cherry tomato, he doesn't know what, just give him a break. Okay, anyway. Friends are forgiving. Friends are nice. Friends, okay, but let's move on. If you want to work on your marriage, I'll share with you one more interesting observation. Okay. I once had a woman who said to me, my husband does nothing for me. Nothing. Not a thing. As soon as the kids get old enough, I'm divorcing him, I'm out of here. I said, that's very interesting. Because I knew that she lived in a beautiful home. They each drove very nice cars, and they had a lot of kids. And I said to madam, I want to ask you a question. How much do you think your husband pays in yeshiva tuition yearly? She didn't know. So I helped her with the math. A bunch of kids, 3 in high school, 2 in grade school, 1 in seminary. He was paying over $100,000 a year in yeshiva tuitions after taxes. I said, oh, he's obviously very wealthy. He had a big Yerusha from his father, right? No. He must have the most phenomenal job in the world. He works really hard. But he probably takes 3-hour lunches. No, he takes his lunch to work and eats at his desk. I said, madam, don't you get it? The guy is slaving away for one reason, for you and the kids. And what he's trying to do is provide for you. How could you not appreciate it? Now, don't get me wrong. There is something that he's not doing, that he should be doing. He's not meeting her needs in a certain way, but she's also missing a major point. And that's something called appreciation. Appreciation means you have to train yourself to see what my spouse does for me and appreciate it. If your husband earns a living and he works very hard to do it, don't just say, well, he's got to earn a living. Yeah, he just loves work. And he's never home anyway. Yeah, why should I love him? Because he's killing himself for you and the kids, for the family, and you should appreciate it. And if you don't appreciate it, stop and think about it. What if someone donated, I said to this woman, what if someone donated $100,000 to a yeshiva? Wow, they make a dinner, whoa, wow. What if a guy did it every year for 10 years, $100,000 a year donated to yeshiva? They close off Main Street, they're unbelievable, right? That's what he's doing for your kids, for you. And if you don't appreciate the beautiful home you have and the beautiful cars and everything you have, then that's a you issue. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to learn to appreciate your spouse. Ladies, you got to recognize what your husband does for you, and if you're not sure what he does for you, just find an older single. Find an older single in the 30s or 40s who's lost and who doesn't know where to put herself. Yontif, she doesn't know where to go. And our younger siblings are married and the cousins are married. Just realize how happy you are that you have a husband, and a husband is responsible and is good, and learn to appreciate that. But gentlemen, there's a corollary. If you don't appreciate what your spouse does for you, I have a little job for you. You take an index card, and on it you write down what your wife does for you. And that means the laundry and the cleaning and the cooking and the taking care of the kids. And if you have children who are even halfway dressed when they go to yeshiva, if they're even halfway normal, you have a debt of gratitude that's inexplicable. And you have to write it down on a card and read it 10 times to yourself. My wife cooks me, she cleans me. Gentlemen, anyone here, you know what happens to your socks when they're done? You know, when you take them off at night, and then the next day, they're in the drawer, folded and smelling nice, dawny, fresh. How'd that happen? Are there like elves who fold the underwear and you're like little elves at night? No. Think about it. Write it down. Write it down, because when you write it down, you begin to recognize my spouse does a tremendous... He doesn't do anything for me. She doesn't do a thing for me. She sits home all day and does nothing. Really? Wow. Try doing her nothing one day, and you'll see. But you won't appreciate it until you write it down. And I mean it. It's an exercise. You have to write it down, and you have to read it to yourself 10 times. But there's another part to this. Not only will you learn to appreciate your spouse, there's a second step to this. I was a high school Rebbe for many years. The last 3 years I was teaching in Muncie, and Rabbi Mazer, the principal, said Rabbi Foreman is coming in tomorrow to sort of assist the Rebbeim in teaching. Now, Rabbi Foreman had been my high school, when I was in grade school, he was the principal, and he was a master mechanech, and I kept up with him for years, and I really respected him, and I was not looking forward to this, because what it meant is he's going to come in and critique. And criticize you did this wrong, you did this wrong, and I liked him, and I really wasn't looking forward to this, but hey, it's part of the job. Okay, next day, Rabbi Mazer comes in, Rabbi Foreman, I sit in the back, and I'm doing my thing, I'm teaching. As I'm teaching, I notice Rabbi Foreman scribbling away. I'm teaching, he's writing, I'm teaching, he's writing. Oh my goodness, I don't want to know where this is going to be. Okay, anyway, we're done in class, My foreman says, I'd like to meet you in the principal's room. So I go into the office, and as I walk in, he says, that was a masterful class. Fantastic. The engagement, the students were there, it was amazing. I said, yeah. No, that's it. I said, no. Now, I know they don't pay big bucks to a master mechanic to come and say you did a good job. I said, but yeah. I said, no, there's nothing else. You did a masterful job, it was fantastic. The engagement, the guys were so in it, I have nothing to say. Okay, folks, I walked out of that room floating on a cloud. And I said to myself, if Rabbi Foreman said to me, I want you to fly to the moon without a spacesuit, I would have said, where is the launch pad? Do you know what the biggest advantage of appreciation is? Number one, you appreciate your spouse. Number two, you get to give a genuine compliment to your spouse. You get to genuinely tell them, I appreciate what you do for me. When I was married 25 years, I wrote a long letter. It was 4 feet by 6, like a huge thing. I blew it up because I realized I did not appreciate, and I wrote to my wife what I appreciate. But ladies and gentlemen, it's both sides. You have to appreciate what your spouse does for you, and you have to express it. And when you do that, suddenly your spouse has a different perception. You have to remember there are 3 pillars to a successful marriage. There's commitment, and there's love, and there's learning to live together. Commitment comes from understanding Hashem doesn't make mistakes. Love is the thick and thin. That's what keeps you going. That requires a lot of work. Part of that is appreciation. You see, when my spouse appreciates me, I know it. And when my spouse tells me that she appreciates it, guess what? I know it very clearly, and it warms my heart. Okay, ladies, this past month, how many sincere, real compliments have you given your husband? Don't answer, don't raise your hand. Just answer the question to yourself. How many sincere, real compliments have you given your husband? Gentlemen, the past month, how many sincere, real compliments have you... Well, I tell her she cooks well, and okay. Let me explain what I'm saying. Love is something that's built. But being best friends that love each other means you have to work on all the tools that build it. There's romantic love, there's friendship, there's appreciation. You go through the book, I went through very detailed into all the steps because all of them are needed. And all of them are a part of it, and you have to do all of it to keep things going. Okay, can we do one more step? Yes. Okay, here we go.
A lot of steps.
A lot of steps, I know, yeah. But it's real simple. What do you got to do? If you want to be happily married, what do you got to do? Treat her like a queen, and she'll treat you like a king. What do you have to do? Treat him like a king, and he'll treat you like a queen. And then life is beautiful. And life is beautiful. But she can't. No. You got stuff to work on. Yeah, look at yourself. By the way, anyone brave? Anyone brave around here? No. Okay, one person brave. Okay, one person in the back brave. Okay. If you would like the single best self-growth exercise, let's say you have problems with your spouse. And I have a list over here, the list of this, let's say, and legitimate claims, legitimate titles, and you don't want to be critical, I have a very simple solution. You take my Musar exercise. What is that Musar exercise? Tomorrow morning when no one's around, you look in the mirror, you point at the person in the mirror, namely you, and you say these words. I am a difficult person to live with. I am a difficult person to live with. I am a difficult person to live with. Now, what do you mean? I'm obnoxious? I'm a difficult person? No. We all have stuff, idiosyncrasies, quirks. By the way, I know for a fact you have stuff. You know why? Hashem put us into this world imperfect, gave us a job of perfecting ourselves. If you were perfect, you'd be done your job here at Seis and the Shalom. You know what I'm saying? Let's hope you still got stuff to work on. But that's the point. I am an imperfect person. And an imperfect person is difficult to live with. But that's something that I never seem to think about. My spouse, she, he. Look in the mirror and say these words. I'm a difficult person to live with. When you do that, it's a lot easier to accept your imperfect spouse. 2 imperfect people making a perfect marriage. Wow. If I had $1 for every time I said to my wife, they are a match made in heaven, living in Gehenna, I'd be a wealthy man. But she's so different. He's so different. She's so different. Yeah, darn right you're so different. That's why I should put you together. And just embrace it, accept it. Don't change her. Don't change them. Just embrace them as they are. Work on the love in the marriage. Work on appreciation. Be a friend. Don't be a boss. Don't be a mentor. Don't be a teacher. If you embrace your spouse as a best friend and you treat her like a queen and she treats you like a king, life is beautiful. Marriage is easy. The problem is, it's not so easy. Okay, I got one more to do. One more, just one more, only one more. A woman says to me, Rabbi, I don't know, what's with my husband? For 3 weeks at a time, he won't speak. He won't say a word. He won't speak to me. All I want is, I'm a balabuster. I just want to bring up a happy kids, a happy home, and I fuss about everything, and he won't talk to me. I said, that's strange. I wonder why that is. She says, well, I'll be honest with you, I think it's because I'm much smarter than him. Oh, what do you mean? Well, I'm very educated, and to be honest with you, he's a nice fellow, but he's not educated. He's kind of a bore, kind of, crass. It's, thank you. So I said, I'd like to meet him. So I asked to meet him. Now I expected to meet, a guy in overalls and dirty work boots, etc. In walked in a finely dressed fellow, very articulate and clearly very intelligent. And I asked him some questions, and then I asked him to step outside. I asked her to come back in, and I said, I noticed something interesting. It seems that you have a lot to say about when he talks, about the way he talks, and what he does. She says, yeah, it's true. I'm a little bit of a grammar Nazi. She taught at girls' high school, and I often correct him. I said, really, like in front of other people? Yeah, at the Shabbos table, when he says the Dvar Torah, if he reads the pasuk wrong, I can't help but correct him. Okay, so I'll explain to you what's really going on. This woman was born with a very self-critical nature. She berated herself since she was a little child to be better and better, and I guess it was okay, but maybe a little bit too much. Anyway, when she got married, she generously included him in her circle of self. And now the guy gets berated and criticized. He can't walk, he can't talk, he can't do nothing without her having something to say about it. The single biggest mistake that very smart couples make is they criticize their spouse. But if I don't show her, how's she going to know? If I don't let him know, he's not going to know from you. But don't do it. But you know why don't do it? We all have this dream. All I have to do is tell my spouse X, Y, and Z, and magically she'll change. I just have to tell him one time clearly, and he'll get it, and he'll be a different person. Okay, has it ever worked? Has it ever worked on the face of the planet? It never works. All that criticism does is makes the other person feel ucky and disgusting and really doesn't like you. Let me say that again. When someone criticizes you, what happens? You don't like that person. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best books ever written, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Phenomenal book, phenomenal book. Rule number 1 of peopling skills. If you'd like to be popular, find what people do well and let them know it. They're going to love you. If you'd like to be unpopular, find what people do badly and point it out to them, and you're going to be hated. And it's human nature. All you have to do to be hated is find the things that people do wrong, let them know about it, and they're going to hate you. And if you want to be well-liked, all you have to do is notice and genuinely compliment people. So criticism is the avi avos hatuma. All right, let's recap really quickly. Re'im ahuvim is the definition of the marriage. Best friends who love each other. But there are 4 rules of friendship. Rule number 1 is what? No, and that criticizes rule number 1 for any relationship. What's the first rule of friendship? No bosses in the matter. Not my way or the highway. No one is the boss. Equal partners, different roles, but equal partners. Second rule of friendship is? I'm sorry? You're not responsible for the spiritual level of your spouse. You're not their mentor, their Rabbi, their rabbi. There are lots of people, lots of eminent rabbis who could do the job. You don't want to put them out of business. They're not going to have a job. Nice, right? Unemployed rabbi. That's not a good thing to be, right? Don't do it. It's just not worth it. It's not your job. Third rule of friendship is? That one we did already. What? It's you and your spouse against the world. If someone verbally attacks your spouse, it's you and the spouse against that person. If that person is your best friend, it's you and your spouse against your best friend. If it's your cousin, it's you and your spouse against the cousin. If it's your brother, you and your spouse against your brother. If it's your mother, it is you and your spouse against your mother. What? Yes. What's the pasuk? Al King Yosef Ishus Aviv Es Imo. It's a pasuk in Bereshis. A man leaves his father and his mother v'davak be'ishto and clings to his wife. Your primary first responsibility is your spouse. Before your mother, your brother, your uncle, your doctor, your cousin, your UPS driver, you defend your spouse. It's you and your spouse against the world, even if it's your mother and even if it's anybody, it doesn't matter. And the fourth rule of friendship is what? Friends are forgiven and tolerant, even if he made the same stupid mistake again and again and again. But how could I let it go? How could I let it go? What's the answer to that one? I too am a difficult person to live with. I too am I got my stuff. And if you don't believe you got your stuff, we'll ask your spouse afterwards, and she'll give you a long list of what your stuff is. Believe me, we are all different. We all got quirks, and it's interesting. We're imperfect. But understanding I'm an imperfect person, marrying to another imperfect person, allows us to make a beautiful relationship. Embrace them, don't change them, work on the friendship, work on the love. 3 parts to a successful marriage: the commitment, love, and learning to live together. And I want to close with one very powerful, I don't even know how to say these words. Rabbi Akiva was one of the Gaonim living in the 1750s. He was one of the greatest rabbis in his time, and he was known, the whole world would write letters asking questions. He was the final word in halacha, and he was a tremendous, tremendous individual. Ask anyone in learning who Rabbi Akiva is, and they'll tell you. Okay, anyway, his wife passed away, and someone wanted to read a shidduch to Rabbi Akiva. They wrote him a letter about such and such person. This was maybe 8 months or a year after his wife passed away. And he writes back to this person, how can I answer you? All of my senses are confused. I can't concentrate on anything. How can I forget the love of my wife, the wife of my youth, my pure dove, who Hashem blessed me with? We produced wonderful children together. She raised them to Torah Yerushalayim. She supported my every effort. She cared for my health and wellness. With whom shall I share my worries and receive comfort? Who will look after and care for me? But here's the punchline. As you can tell, I'm a broken man in a dark world. I've lost all pleasure. I accept Hashem's decree, but I cannot answer any questions now. The tears make me unable to read. I did everything in my power to care for my wife and keep her alive. Now I am too weak and in grave danger. I am unable to eat. I can barely keep anything down. I can't sleep. I can't daven without distraction. I can barely learn. Those words were written by one of the greatest Gaonim of our past 500 years. But that's the attachment, that's the bond, that's the connection. It doesn't come naturally, it doesn't come easy, there's a lot of work involved. Infatuation is very easy, but love takes a lot of work. It's commitment, love, and learning to live together. Those are things you got to work on. Now, before I introduce Rabbi Rutenburg and I are going to take questions, but before we do that, I want to introduce something because I can't resist this. Anyone here have ADD? Okay, if you have attention deficit disorder, as I do, you probably have difficult reading. What's amazing is I read a lot. That's an amazing thing, but I have ADD. Anyway, I realized something. Anyone under 30? Anyone under 30 here? Under 30? Most people under 30 are illiterate. They either physically can't read or they have ADD, they don't read. So I wrote a book called The 10 Really Dumb Mistakes, and I thought it was a very good book. And people tell me, oh, Rabbi, I love the book. I said, great, what page are you up to? Page 30. How long you had it? 3 months. Wow. Another guy said to me, I'm up to page 12. Wait, there's a table of contents, there's Haskamas, it starts on page 10. You're on page 12? How long? Okay, so I realized people under 30 don't read. So I said, okay, I get it, this is the generation. So I'm doing battle. So I came up with something called a video book. What's a video book? It's a book, right? Except one little knach. One little knach goes like this. It's a video book.
What's more than he is? What do you mean?
What is that woman?
I mean, he's not educated. He's a nice person, but he's ignorant and not polished. I think that deep down, that may be the cause of the problem. I said to her, I'd like to meet him.
This wasn't planned, but that's the story.
Are you expecting a coarse-speaking, boorish fellow
Isn't that
wearing
cool?
overalls and dirty boots?
Yeah, cool. Wow, I didn't even plan that. Anyway, the contents of the book, basically, it's not exactly the book, but yes, Rabbi Rutenburg, I think it's even more powerful because it's animated, it's 53 to 4 minute videos, but it's the essence of the book. It's basically the mechanics, what a marriage needs, how to work in a marriage, art of apology, communication, how do you communicate? Anybody know how you communicate? Anybody read the 10 Really Dumb Mistakes? How do you communicate? Yeah, what are the rules of communication? See, you're not gonna, if you've read the video book, you'll know. Anyway, it happens to be that also they're available on theshmuz.com. Somebody sponsored tonight. I have a few copies here. They're normally $49. They're $25 tonight if you're interested. I have some here, and I have some books. You come over after. And now Rabbi Rutenburg and I are going to take questions. First of all, Rabbi Rutenburg, thank you.
Shalom, everyone. Just say something really fast. It's really a zechut to be here with Rabbi Shafier. Big shout out to Shai and everyone who made this possible, and to the Young Israel. And I didn't get to hear most of your speech tonight, but I'm a big fan of Rabbi Shafier, and I'm going to say something on my part, but I think Rabbi Shafier will agree with me, that he wrote this book, not for everyone here, he wrote this book for himself.
Only because I made every one of them.
Yes.
Mistakes.
Every one of the mistakes.
Correct.
And I think one of the most important aspects and principles of Shalom Bayit is realization that there's no such thing as somebody who has Shalom Bayit. It doesn't exist. I heard Mrs. What's her name? Greenblatt from Five Towns. We're talking about. She used to speak at the Gateway seminars.
Yeah.
So she said people have this mistake and they think that some people have Shalom Bayit and some people don't have Shalom Bayit. It's like either you have it or you don't have it. She's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Every single person who wants to have a peaceful home, who wants to have a home that's really a role model for their children, for what they want their children to have in their homes, it has to be a work in progress. And it needs to be a constant work on the relationship, and I always say, on yourself. And I think that a lot of the principles in here are about self-growth as well. Because a real relationship is made up of two people who are each working on themselves to be the healthiest version of themselves, and then together building the relationship of their dreams, so to speak. So, Chazak Baruch Rabbi Shafier, please b'chavod. Well, we're going to take some questions. I know it's a little bit late. We won't take too many, but please.
I'm going to take one. Okay. First question goes to Rabbi Rutenburg.
Please. Who's the brave one? Amira, of course.
You said before how your husband isn't your friend. So like when it comes
You're on the hook
to
for this.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Husband is your friend, best friends
No,
love each
I'm
other.
saying that in terms of like with your friend, you give a lot of like you have a lot of grace and you give them a lot of like empathy or what. But with your husband, you don't. But the expectation, I guess, is different between like let's say a friend where you have that grace and you have that empathy and you have that forgiveness. Where you don't, like the expectation is different for a husband.
But that's not fair.
So that's what I'm asking, is that?
No, it's not wise, not fair. No, it's natural, you're right, it's natural and we all do it.
Yeah.
But you have to step back and say, why am I so polite and nice to my friends and to my husband? I'm not, like, why? And you have to train yourself, you have to stop.
I think it's the expectation of that person. You don't expect it from your friend.
I've never met a husband who says, I love it when my wife corrects me and she cuts me off and she won't let me finish a sentence. I never once met a husband who said that. Maybe anybody, guys like that? I sometimes like to finish at least. Let me get let me figure out what I'm saying, then you can argue. But let me get,
I think what you're saying is that there's an expectation that you have of your husband, and that's why you're disappointed. Not talking about you.
No.
Somebody else. There's an understanding that one would be disappointed with their spouse because they have a high expectation for them, but for the stranger, we don't have that expectation.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
that's great. But
are you nice? Are you polite? Are you sweet when you express your, not criticism, your lack of approval, your criticism, not lack of total estimation in your eyes, lack of criticism, your lack of you're the best thing that ever happened to me, I love you, I'm so appreciative of everything you do for me, criticism. I just, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. How do you be well-liked? Find what people do well and compliment them. How do you be hated? Find what people do wrong and make sure that they know about it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I would just add, I think sometimes high expectations of each other and even of yourself can actually be very damaging. And there's a new book that just came out called The Gain or the Gap by this author named Benjamin Hardy. And he makes a very powerful point that he says successful people focus on the progress. They're not always focusing on how far they are away from where they want to be. And sometimes it's like these small steps that actually get us where we need to go. So sometimes too high expectations of each other is a problem. And I would say from my personal experience, almost always it starts with yourself. Almost always it's because you're being really hard on yourself, and your spouse, ishto kegufo, our spouse is like us. So if I'm so critical of myself, I end up being very critical of my partner. So I think it's important, we want to strive and want to grow, but we also need to be nice to ourselves. There's an author, he's actually my first mentor in psychology, Rabbi Mermelstein from the Five Towns, Dr. Mermelstein, and he wrote a book called, it's an art scroll book, called Being and Becoming. And being and becoming. And the concept is that we at all times in our life have to appreciate who we are at the same time as we strive to do more. And this is really one of the main balancing acts of life. It's a very tricky balance. It's a balance of being happy with who you are and also striving to be better. Being happy with your spouse and striving to encourage.
And not telling them what they need to change. Working on yourself and only yourself, not paying attention to your spouse. Your spouse has his or her role. Your job is to work on you. Let your spouse... What's the second rule of friendship? What's the third? You are not your spouse's spiritual guide, mentor, teacher. You work on you. Let your spouse work on himself, and everybody will be happy. But I can help him grow, and I'm not an Eish Yisrael. If I don't help him, not an Eish Yisrael. I was once, this is not a joke, I was speaking in Queens. There was a large, in the Bet Gavril, and it was televised by, it was being live streamed by Torah Anytime. So, and I said, don't criticize your spouse, don't criticize, don't, okay. So a guy brings up to me his phone. His wife was watching at home, and she sends the following text to him. My Rebbitzin told me that if I don't help my spouse grow, I'm not an Eish Yisrael. If I don't point out what he's doing wrong, and then I'm not an Eish Yisrael. I said, first of all, I don't believe she said anything like that. But if she did, is her husband like a divorce lawyer? Or a towing for Gittin? Because there's no way, I don't believe she said, okay. Let me be very clear. I spent a lot of time on this. I learned for many years in yeshiva. I have smicha for many years, and I studied the pasuk. I never once saw anyone say that Ezer Kenegdo means mentor, teacher, rebbitzin, police lady. Ezer Kenegdo means support. Opposite support, friend, help. Best friends who love each other, not teacher, mentor, rebbe, etc. You know what I'm saying? Yes, question.
What about pushing your husband to learn?
Don't do it.
Not pushing.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You want to learn? Push yourself to learn. You want to get up early? Push yourself to learn. Leave your husband be. By the way, okay folks, here, I love davening. I work on davening, and I'm really getting into davening. And to this day, I come late to davening. And I beat myself up. It's a chil Hashem, people see, what can I tell you? I was born late, I'll probably hopefully die late. That's my, okay. Now, one time in my marriage, one time my wife said to me, maybe if you close the Gemara now, you'll actually be on time to shul. One time she said it. I didn't get angry, but she saw the look, and she never said it again. Why not? She wants to help me. Sure. And by the way, it's very difficult. She says, because it doesn't help. I know I should be on time, so why aren't you on time? Whatever, I don't know, we all got stuff. But you're telling me what I know already is not going to motivate. Oh, now I'm going to go, yeah. My wife beat me up, she criticized me, she pointed out I'm a jerk and a loser. Yeah, great, let's go. I don't think so. So, don't do it. Wait, was I clear? Could be I wasn't clear. Positive motivation? How about I got a good one? You take care of you and let your spouse take care of themselves. Don't positive nothing, because positive motivation means, come on, get it together. Your spouse is way too wise. She'll see right through it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, you got a lot of stuff. Anyone here perfect? 1 second. 1 second. Raise your hand if you're perfect, please. Okay. All right. Okay, so if you're not perfect, you got a lot to work on. Work on yourself. Work on your midos, your davening, your shamayim, whatever. Humble, right? You work on it. Yeah, question.
There's a question here from
Rabbi, you as a professional, argument is a healthy in the family or not?
Argument?
Yes.
Who's the boss?
No, just to discuss the problem. You think it's healthy or it's not healthy?
Okay, so argument means argument?
Yes.
So how does that help anybody? I said it louder than you! And I meant it! And did she listen? Oh, I never realized it. Now I get it. Oh, I never understood it. But now you screamed at 120 decibels. Now I understand it. Oh, thank you for making it clear. Has it ever happened?
Sometimes it's no.
So the truth is that raising one's voice with their spouse, with their kids, with their employees, with almost any situation is not a very helpful approach. Like the rabbi said.
You didn't mean raising the voice.
That's not what he meant.
Oh, okay. But we're making a very strong point.
Just to help the
But-
arguments, not
okay.
agreeing on the same thing, that's what he meant.
No, you mean, but
Not-
discussion, yeah, that's right, you
Discussion,
should,
not-
of course,
not-
but not arguments.
Some people, they afraid to open their mouth.
No, you absolutely should, no, one second.
If you mean a polite, I feel absolutely 100%.
Not like the way, like a common way.
No, then absolutely 100%. No, then it's not only it's very important because you want to be able to communicate with your spouse. You want her to understand you. Right, exactly. Right. But I have a simple litmus test. Are things better when you're done or worse?
I think sometimes it's better, most times. it's
Most
better.
time. Okay, so here's what I found. Women are better, guys never. Almost always, she wants to talk better, so they talk better, and she feels better. It's like a catharsis. She's calm, and he's like edgy her. So, but if it works, do it. As long as it's polite and yeah, I think it's always a good idea to be able to. You want to be able to communicate. You want to be able to express. You want to be open. As long as it's nice and polite, and if it works.
I just want to say a few really quick things about arguments. So first of all, John Gottman, who's one of the biggest experts on relationships, he makes a very interesting approach. He says that when people think that real estate is location, and relationships it's communication. So he says if you see a couple arguing, there's a lot of communication going on. And in essence, the arguments themselves, from all his research, are not bad, exactly like you said. Actually, couples who don't argue at all have often less healthy relationships than couples that have a certain amount of back and forth, but at least they're communicating because they're not holding as much resentment and contempt inside. So arguments, like if you find me a house that has 0 arguments, I'm not necessarily going to tell you that that's a peaceful home. However, a few things about arguments. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they have this idea that you're not allowed to go to sleep until you resolve every problem. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes, okay? You should try not to go to sleep angry at each other. But a lot of times the thing that's bothering you at 2 o'clock in the morning, the next morning you're like, huh? We were really upset about that. So sometimes the best approach to dealing with an argument is not to feel the need to address it immediately. That's an important point to remember. And I think in general, the most important thing in communication is what Dale Carnegie says and what Stephen Covey talks about, which is first seek to understand, then to be understood. One of the biggest problems in communication today, people almost don't listen at all. As you're talking, I'm already thinking about my rebuttal. I barely let the words even come into my mouth, into my ears. And you notice that in the conversation, they're not even listening. They don't even let the words come in. They're already responding. It's like they're in court. And what your spouse wants, usually more than anything else, is not an answer from you, but is to feel understood. So when it comes to an argument, and there's a psychologist named Mayer Winkler. He wrote a book called The 10 Minutes. And it's a very brilliant concept you can buy. It's an art scroll book called 10 Minutes. And basically he came up with a whole approach where each spouse takes turns one day, the next day, speaking for 10 minutes, and the other person is not allowed to respond till the next day, till 24 hours later, okay? And it's not about the concept is that we as human beings, we want to feel understood. We want to feel that somebody just understands what my pain is, what I'm going through. And a lot of times you have discord with couples because each person doesn't feel understood. Each person feels like the other person doesn't understand me, and that creates a lot of tension and friction. I often share this story. It's such a powerful story from Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, where Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was one of the greatest sages of the 20th century. He lived in Jerusalem. He was a tremendous Talmudic and halachic authority, and he also had a tremendous care for the Jewish people. And I saw this story, first-hand account, where there was a family that became Baal Tshuva, and the wife and the husband, they went from secular to becoming religious. Except the wife had a problem covering her hair. It was very, very hard for her to cover her hair. And it's a very common thing because it's hard. And she went to many different rabbanim, he went to many different rabbanim, and they were not able to resolve this. And it was a little embarrassing because they were in a community where everybody was covering, and the husband was not going to pressure her. And he finally went to this great sage to ask his advice. So he went to Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and he sat next to him, and he told him his problem. And Rosh Shlomo Zalman, the wife was not there, it was just the two of them. And he went for a half hour, and he explained to the man, like 10 different reasons why his wife doesn't want to cover her hair. It's like part of her body. Would you cover your hair? Many, many different reasons. And then the man's like, okay, so now what should I do? He's like, I'm sorry, our time is up. And he takes him to the door. And he walks out of the house like his head is spinning. He doesn't know what hit him. And he comes home, his wife's like, what's wrong? He's like, I don't know. He didn't tell me anything. She's like, what did he tell you? And he went over and he explained all the different things that the rabbi said. And the wife looks at the husband and she goes, okay, I'm ready. She says, until now, everybody was giving a solution. Nobody was understanding me. This sage understood me. And he seems like he got through to you too. Now I'm ready, because at least somebody understands me. I think it's very, very important to keep that in mind, because we want so much in an argument, we want to get our opinion across. We want you to understand what I'm thinking. But what we should strive in an argument is to understand what the other person's thinking. Maybe one or two final questions?
What happens if, for the sake of argument, I have a hard time waking up in the morning, so I ask my wife to wake me up? Is that do, not do, forbidden?
No, that's fine. If you ask her to wake you up, that's fine. Because you ask, please wake me up, that's great.
Wake me up at 6 in the morning, I want to go to the gym.
Yeah, that's great. No, there's nothing wrong with that. That's if you asked her to wake you up, but if you didn't ask her and she volunteers because she knows how important it is for you, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Yeah.
What are you doing with this paper?
What?
What are you doing with the paper?
I can't hear. What?
What are you doing with the papers that you pulled out?
Oh, what am I doing with them? Yeah. You know what first thing I'm gonna do is read them. And I guarantee, the first thing I guarantee, anyone with a 4 and below, there are gonna be 2 things that my spouse is doing wrong. What do you want to bet? What do you want to bet? Anyone with a satisfied 4 below, yep, here's one thing my spouse should do. Good. What could you do to improve your marriage? Not sure. I love it. Not sure. I see. Okay, please finish the sentence. My marriage would be much better, and I would be happier if my wife would be more softer in her tone. My husband would make more money. We made more money together. If we were on the same page to save and spend budget, made future plans together. Do you understand? You see, this is really an exercise for you. It's an exercise because I guarantee what's wrong with my marriage is, and that's pointing the wrong way. What's wrong with my marriage is what I can change. I can work. My job is not to work on my spouse. My job is to work on me. And the reason I ask you to do this is because it's an exercise for you. And I read this because it's my entertainment. No, it is an exercise for you to see. Am I right? Not you, but I'm saying other people. No?
When you get to the paper that says myself, that's not.
Is that true? Is it? No, I'm missing it.
Maybe you're not the only one.
Yeah, I have 7 of them. No. With myself, yeah? All right, that's great. If that's true, then you didn't have to come tonight.
But his wife on the other.
But you understand how natural it is? Because you see, it's so obvious to me that my spouse is messing up our marriage. And if she would just do things differently, life would be great. but I never seem to realize that I got stuff too. And the I got stuff I actually can change, and I could change in a positive, and when I try to change her, it wrecks the relationship, doesn't change anything. So that's really, that's the whole point. The whole point tonight is change you, and you'll actually do something. Change her, you're gonna wreck the marriage. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so if anyone's interested in the video book, we have, they're discounted tonight. Someone is generously sponsored. They're $25. I have about 10 of them if anyone wants. You can pay by Zelle or whatever number of ways. If you want a book, also those are $10 tonight. They're discounted and...
Thank you, everyone. Chazak u'Baruch.
Thank you.
We will play Arvit in a few moments over here.
Right here.